Absolutely.
But you definitely need to reach out to him if you're realtors and you have not met Glen in the Illinois area. You definitely should reach out to him and take advantage of his knowledge. But anyway, so I got to know him throughout this whole 9 weeks, and I learned so much about real estate from him. And he full of knowledge. I don't even know what to say, but it's just like full of knowledge. And I'm really glad I got you here to answer all of this question. Before I ask you all the question, Glen, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself so that the audience know who you are?
Sure. I'm Glen Marino, and graduate of DePaul University and majored in accounting and finance. And for many years, I audited banks. Then I bought banks with investors, and then I sold those, and then I went into the mortgage banking business. And I eventually decided that the best way to be in the mortgage banking business was to help realtors make money. And so the way that I felt I could help them make money was I wanted to look for marketing strategies that would help them grow their business. And I felt if they would grow their business, they would grow mine. I developed 8 classes called the Realtor Internet Marketing Academy. We build from the killer listing presentation to how to win every expired, how to win every for sale by owner. We do a lot of Facebook building, posting, ads, custom audiences, Facebook pixels. We're constantly doing some fun, exciting things. We build personal websites for the realtors that are free. They're very dynamic. It helps them to have a very professional presence in front of both buyers and sellers. And what'll be coming up next week, Candace, will be a how to conduct the perfect open house, which I'm really excited about because we're going to talk about these high technology tools a lot, especially with this COVID-19 and not being able to be in personal close quarters with people. How can we conduct great open houses these days? I've got three beautiful daughters. One is in Colorado, married with my grandson, Carson. I've got a middle daughter down in Springfield. She's a teacher. And then I got the baby of the family. She's in Lincoln Park in Chicago and buying her first condo. Candace, she's buying her first piece of real estate in about 2 months. So and then Rose and I, the reason I have the palm tree and the water's crashing in, Rose and I are building a home in Siesta Key, Florida, and we're kind of excited about that. So that's a little bit about me and my background.
Awesome. So you'd finally convinced her to buy her first real estate, huh?
Yeah, remember we were talking about that in classes. I didn't get her to buy the 4-unit. I wanted her to buy the 4-unit and then have no mortgage payment and let the tenants pay. But at least she went so far as to dive in, and she's buying her first condo, and she's excited. We're excited for her.
Awesome. You know what? In fact, we're gonna go back to that piece in a little bit. I do want you to tell people a little bit about that. But before we move forward with asking you a question, let me tell you this. And I'm gonna advertise myself a little bit because of what he said. I took his classes and I got this technology that, like he mentioned, that we could actually build. If I was listing your property, I could actually have a website for your property. Every single property that I'm listing, I could have a website, so that instead of, a general website to whomever, I could actually have a website for if your house was, 1234 Main Street, a website 1234 Main Street, it just designates to you. How awesome is it to have a website designate to your house, your listing, right? With, of course, nice pictures, and then have 9 different brochures. And we could go as far as building your own Facebook page so that you could actually share with your community, your family, friends. So, those are the things that it makes the difference. So like when I go, I feel so much confident after taking your class. I could go into a listing and say, I could bring that, say, how many realtors could actually make a website for your listing so that you can actually be in the Google search. So,
Candace, we should even expand on it, because what you can do once that you have that property website, it then allows you to put a little sign writer out on your yard sign where
yes.
people now can text, because in today's world, people want instant gratification. They see the house, but if your yard sign says, for more information on this home, text Maine. If they're on Main Street, text the word Maine to 79564. In seconds, it downloads all the MLS pictures. It does a virtual tour, what's nearby in the neighborhood, just like you're talking about, into their smartphone, into their cell phone. Yep. And while they're sitting at curbside going, oh, look at the kitchen. Oh, look at the master bedroom. The realtor's getting an email and a text message. They can contact them while their car is still parked at curbside and introduce the realtor to them and see if they'd like a showing, find out what their needs are. If this is good, great a showing. If not, I can show you other properties. So again, yes, that technology is all free to you, and it helps you in winning listing presentation after listing presentation.
Yes, it's awesome. Like I say, if you're realtors and you have not met Glen, you should definitely reach out to him. I learned so much from you and get the tools from you, and which is great. All right, let's dive into it. So last night, even though I already have the question that I want to ask you, but I want to start with this. Last night, I literally saw someone posted on Facebook in a community group that the question was, what, is it a good time? I want to ask someone's opinion. Is it too late to look for a rental property right now? Because, my husband now has a second thought about buying now. So my first question to you, Glen, because of all of this going on and unemployment rate, it's going up like crazy. Is it a good time for me to buy?
Well, it really depends on, the answer is it depends on the neighborhood, the property, and the tenant profile. It's really unfortunate in this COVID-19 environment that people are being furloughed. People are losing their jobs. People are having their hours reduced. People are asking landlords that they not to pay their rent. So it's one in which I think you're going to find those that put their properties up for sale. There's going to be good buys out there. You just have to, if you're going to buy a 2 to 4 unit, there's great financing available if you'll owner occupier and live in one of the units. So for example, if it's a 2, 3, or a 4 unit, I can buy a 4 unit property. If I live in just one of the 4 units, I can buy it for as little as 3.5% down. Well, 3.5% is a small down payment, knowing full well that units 1, 2, and 3, if they rent for $1,500 a piece, that's $1,500, $3,000, $4,500 that I'm getting every month. And that goes back to the tenant profile. What kind of profile does the building have? If they've been long-term tenants, if the tenants have been paying like clockwork, that would be something that I would investigate if I was buying into the building. I'd want to know how long the tenant's been there. I might even want to, talk to the tenants and find out if their jobs are secure. Are they currently paying rent, or are they asking for rents not to be paid? I would hold off if I was going to be buying into a building where I would have a mortgage payment or an obligation to pay a mortgage, and the tenants were not paying the rent. So that's a hold there if that's the situation. But if you have tenant profile, tenants have been there for a while, they're currently paying their rents, their jobs are secure. We're starting to open up the economy again. Great buys for 2, 3, and 4 units with 3.5% down. And in order to get 3.5% down, you must own or occupy one of the units. If you're buying it for investment purposes, 2, 3, or 4 unit, you're going to have to put 25% down. So, that's a big difference between owner occupying and then not owner occupying. I've had several clients who will owner occupy a building for a year, let's say. They live in one of the units. They collect rents from tenants 2, 3, and 4. They have very little mortgage payment. In fact, some of them have no mortgage payment because the rents exceed what the lender wants them to pay in a monthly payment. After a year, obviously they've saved money every month, right? They didn't pay rent. They didn't pay a mortgage payment. The tenants paid it for them. They've been saving and saving and saving money. If they then want to go and buy a single family, they've got money in the bank for down payment. They can take themselves out of the 4-unit, put in another tenant. Now they've got 4 tenants in there. They got a great rental property, a great cash flower on their hands. And, in today's marketplace, they've got a great fixed rate for 30 years. The mortgage payment's not going to go up except for the real estate tax portion. And yet rents should escalate in the future and make it a great investment for now and for in the future.
So
it's buyer beware. In other words, the lady who had that question, I think it's an appropriate question. It's called, buyer beware. Understand the tenant profile. Don't just go, well, it's a 2 or 3 or 4 unit. Do more due diligence. Find out, are these long-term tenants? They've been there. It looks like they're going to be staying there. That they're currently paying the rent. Mm-hmm. Then you can proceed. But just to look at the building and the building's numbers without doing an interview or talking to the tenants, I think would be a mistake.
Got you. So, but what if someone just want to buy a single home right now? I mean, okay, granted, there are people who still have a job. Let's say, if you don't have a job, I assume right now it's hard for you to actually apply for mortgage. If you still have a job, the interest rate is low. I think it's a good time to buy, but I think some people thinking that I don't know if it's a good time to buy. It's because maybe they're not comfortable going out to see housing. Maybe they are still kind of skeptical about the market. They're probably thinking that maybe they don't want to buy the house and then 2 years later, we're going back to 2008. So with that case, like if I want to buy just a single home living out here in the suburb area, I still have a job that pays the bills and all of that. And do you think it's a good idea? And I'm seeing myself I'm seeing myself living here for the next 5-10 years. Do you think it's a good idea for me to just wait for a little bit, or should I go ahead and go for it?
Well, I still think that the golden rules still apply, that if you wait, a couple things are going to take place. One, typically the real estate might get more expensive, and mm-hmm. 2, interest rates might get higher or they might increase, which then takes away from your buying power. So if your income currently can support a $200,000 home and you wait and rates go up, you might now can only afford a $180,000 home. So yes. You're going back to your first assumption that I currently have my job. It's like my daughter. My daughter's buying her first real estate condo in the Lincoln Park area in Chicago. The mm-hmm. first thing she did was she got, she's a recent hire. So again, if companies are going to, cut back, they're going to take some of their newest hires and let them go. So she wanted to make sure that her job was secure. She got that confirmation that the job was secure. Well, with that, she could continue to pay rent, but again, you don't build equity, mm-hmm. you don't get any tax deduction. Therefore, she said, yes, I now that my job is secure, I would like to buy, because again, I think rates are so doggone low right now. And especially and take this into consideration. Most realtors that I talk to, their listings, whether they're a buyer's agent showing people property, or if they're listing a property, most of them are under $331,000, okay? And that's the cutoff for IHDA, for the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And when you and I talk to 1,000 different customers, realtors, 999 out of 1,000 don't even know that the IHDA down payment assistance program exists. So if all of a sudden I'm a renter and I'm not sure about whether I should buy or not, I know that if I'm going to be moving into an apartment, I got to give a landlord a first month's rent. I got to give them a security deposit.
Yeah.
First month's rent, $1,500, security deposit. That's $3,000 I've got to give to the landlord. Or if I have at least a 620 or better credit score, I'm sorry, 640 for IDA, 640 or better. If I make less than $106,920. Now, Candace, tell me, you and I both probably know a lot of people that make less than $106,920.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, that's a big segment of the population. So, okay, you got a green light, your credit score is above 640, you make less than $106,920, you now can get up to $10,000. There's 3 programs, a $6,000, a $7,500, and $10,000. You want me to go into it in detail? I can later. But the first 2 programs, the $6,000 grant and the $7,500 no interest loan, there's no monthly payments. So here's $7,500, which is what we're doing with my daughter. Here's $7,500. There's no interest on it. Oh, and by the way, honey, there's no monthly payments for 30 years or whenever you sell the condo again. So she stays in there for 10 years and then sells it. That's when she owes the $7,500 back. But, today, does she have that extra $7,500 in her savings account? No. But does that down payment assistance with no monthly payments, either on the $6,000 program or the $7,500, does that help her tremendously? Absolutely. It gives her the confidence of, I can move forward. I can become a homeowner. I can start to build equity. I can stop paying my landlord's mortgage. And so, for all those great reasons, she wanted to build equity. She wanted to have ownership. She decided to take the step forward and become a buyer. So, and again, when you can get a rate, she's getting a rate of 3.125%. That's really low.
Wow. Yes.
So, and again, if you were to go with FHA, she's doing a conventional loan. If you did FHA in today's environment on an IDA loan, you would be at 2.875 on a 30-year fixed. 2.875. I mean,
Right.
these are unheard of low rates. And therefore, if I had any advice to somebody, before you just go ahead and sign with a landlord on a security deposit and a first month's rent, at least for free, take a look at whether or not you should become a homeowner and what will it take. Because all you have to do, if you remember those 2 green lights, 640 or better credit score, you make less than $106,920, which most of the world does, then all you have to do is come up with 1% of your own funds. Well, what's 1% of 200,000? $2,000. So they have $3,000 to give to a landlord, right? A first month's rent and a security deposit, they got $3,000. So they easily then have $2,000 to satisfy IDA saying, if I'm going to give you $7,500, if I'm going to give you $10,000, minimally you got to put in, your skin in the game is 1% or $2,000 in my example there. So I think we're busier than we've ever been right now, talking to people. We're finding people at home because they're working from home. Because they're working from home, they're able to answer the phone. We're educating them on what down payment assistance could mean to them. And we're getting a lot more people pre-approved. And then it's just a matter of, how do you go out in COVID-19 environment? Some people say, hey, I'll wear a mask, I'll wear gloves, and I'll walk through, different units. The realtor shows up with a mask with gloves. That's how my daughter did it. Some people are uncomfortable about that. And more of the listing realtors are setting up virtual tours for people. So again, they're looking for different online, they're looking for different homes that they would like, and then they're taking the virtual tours. And I suspect in the weeks and months ahead that they're going to then go from just looking at virtual tours, they will put on the mask, they will put on the protective gloves, and they will go into the property and take a look at it before they actually sign their name to the contract. I think it's a great time to be buying right now.
You know what, I think the key is that whatever situation you're in, definitely should talk to some expert, right? Like you said, before you sign another year lease, at least talk to an expert to see what's your option, right? And
Especially when it's free, right?
Yes, it's especially free. Another thing is that when if you're concerned about health, find someone who have knowledge and who understand all of this precaution, the guideline of going to see a house. There is a way to do it in a healthy manner. Just like you say, wear mask, glove, and talk to your realtors, and your realtor will be able to help you and get everything together for you. And so here's the thing. It's a great time to buy, right? Definitely, if you have the ability, you have a job that, it's a stable job,
Yes.
and you have the credit. Because I think the two things that's stopping people from buying was the credit and the down payment. So I will ask Glenn the question a little bit later about how you can overcome the credit and the down payment, which he kind of shared a little bit. But I want to kind of change our direction a little bit. Now, I'm a
Okay.
homeowner. Definitely, interest rate is low. Now, some of us temporary, our job furlough, whatever. And some people still have a job. Definitely, if you have a job, I would assume it's a good time to refi, right?
It's a great time to refi, and it really depends on the day. And let me tell you what I mean by depends on the day.
Okay.
Typically, mortgage interest rates are tied to what's called the 10-year Treasury note. Okay, if you go look at a chart, the 10-year Treasury, as it goes up or down, that's typically what's going to happen with mortgage interest rates. Well, the 10-year Treasury has been trending down and down and down, and all of a sudden, at the beginning of 2020 here, the mortgage industry got a huge influx of volume of refinances. Why not? Take advantage of low interest rates, right? Well, what happens is the lenders take these mortgages and they put them into what's called collateralized mortgage-backed securities. And the value of that mortgage-backed security depends on how quickly the mortgages pay off, or more importantly, how long the mortgages stay in the pool. Well, people are refinancing, they're being paid off. And so what ended up happening is the banks had to slow down the volume, or have slowed down the volume, artificially, on any particular day, artificially, rates should have been in the mid threes. We saw rates in the fours a couple weeks ago, which there was no logic to it. It was arbitrary, but that's why I say it depends on the day. If it is a day where we see them being artificially high, we'll tell the client, you still should, you will put you on a wait list, which means wait only a couple days, wait a week. We're going to watch the rates with you. And when the rates come back down to where they are now, the rates are very reasonable now. They're going to be in the low 3% right now for a 30-year fixed. On a 15-year fixed, you can get probably under 3%. So if you're a homeowner, if you have a job, you then have the ability to refinance. And what they need to know is, what's the goal of their refinance? And refinancing has many different paths that one can travel down. Is my goal to drop private mortgage insurance? I took out a loan 5 years ago, and I have private, because I couldn't put 20% down. You can avoid private mortgage insurance anytime you put at least 20% down. Okay. Well, if I have an FHA loan, I've got private mortgage insurance. If I put less than 20% down on a conventional loan, I've got private mortgage insurance. That could be a couple $100 per month in people's payments. Well, I can drop that if all of a sudden it's 5 years later, the property is appreciated, my mortgage balance has been going down as I've been making payments, I've got 20% or more equity in the property. Dropping private mortgage insurance would be one of my goals. You know, what if it's just, I want to, what some people say, well, I just want to lower my payment. I don't have private mortgage insurance. Well, that's great. If you have an interest rate of say 4.75 and now you can get in the mid threes and you can lower your payment, that would be a good goal.
Yes.
Maybe some people say, hey, Glenn, I've got, you know, maybe my goal should be to reduce the term. I had a 30-year loan. It's 5 years later. I have 25 years remaining, right? What if I were to go now to a 15-year loan? The rate is 2.875, but the payment doesn't really go up that much from what I'm currently paying at 4.75 on a 30-year. Yes, on a 15-year loan, your principal portion goes up. You're paying the principal back faster, right? You're not paying it over 30 years, you're paying it over 15 years. So the principal portion goes up, but the interest portion goes down because you're going from 4.75 to 2.875. Maybe the payment isn't there isn't a big payment shock. Now you've gone from paying 25 more years on your, if you don't refinance, you got 25 more years to pay versus if you do the 15-year, you only have 50, you just saved 10 years of a mortgage payment. If your mortgage payment was $2,000 times 10 years times, that's 120 payments. What's 120 payments times 2,000? It's a lot of money.
For sure, yes, that's a lot of money, yes.
So, I mean, reducing the term is something that might be someone's goal. Again, what if somebody has run up credit cards? It's been tough. They've been working, they got the house, but they've been having to put improvements in, or they had Christmas or whatever, and they've put gifts and other things onto credit cards. Another good reason, you got low interest rates. Your credit cards are at what interest rate? 18, 21, 24%.
Mm-hmm.
Why not go from 21% down to 3.5%? So again, consolidate your credit cards with a new first mortgage, pay off the credit card debt, and now all of a sudden you'll find that you're going to have less cash outflow because you refinanced and paid off your credit cards. You can also, again, what is your goal? Is your goal to get off of an ARM? Some people, bought their house because they got a lower rate on a 5 one-year ARM, adjustable rate mortgage. Some people took out a 7 one-year ARM. So for 5 years or 7 years, it was fixed, but now it's going to start to adjust every 1 year thereafter. Well, they see rates are low. Wow. Do I really want to stay on something that's going to adjust my interest rate every single year? Or would I like to just lock into a nice 30-year fixed rate and go to sleep at night with my head on the pillow and not worry about it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's lots of different reasons. Some people just say, hey, I want to do a refinance because I want to build a deck on my backyard, or I want to build an outdoor kitchen, or I want to finish my basement. Again, great reason to refinance. So I always go back to people and say, refinancing is great with these low interest rates, but what are some of your goals? And then I kind of go through that checklist. You want to drop PMI? You want to build, finish the basement? Do you want to pay off any credit cards? Do you want to, let's take a look at what a 15-year might be. Because again, in their mind, it was a 30-year fixed. What I try not to do is put people back onto it. They've got 25 years remaining. So to go from a 25 back to a 30, you've now added 5 more years to paying your mortgage off. Well, I just as soon not see people do that, pay it off sooner than later. And so if they got 25 years, let's look at a 15-year with a lower interest rate and see if that isn't a smarter move for them. So yeah, refinancing, they need to know what they should also, one of the things they should also avoid when they're thinking about refinancing is avoid the no cost refis out there, where people say, hey, we can refinance you and there'll be no cost refinance. There's no such thing as a free lunch, meaning that
really?
if they're going to give you a no cost refinance, that means what the lender did was, let's say we've been talking, for an example, 3.5%. That means the lender raised the rate up to 4, gave them a premium rate, such that then the lender gave a credit to the customer, and that credit was large enough to pay, say, the $2,000 worth of closing costs on a refinance. So again, they could have gotten 3.5%, but instead they got 4% to pay the closing costs. Or what the lender has done is the lender has raised, say you owe, pick a number again, $175,000 on your mortgage. So what the lender can do is they can raise up the loan amount from 175 to 177,000, so that you got $2 extra $1,000 in proceeds to pay the closing costs. Yeah. If you can, to me, if you look at what $2,000 financed over 30 years is, you're going to have paid back like, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, having borrowed $2,000 to pay for closing costs. Yeah. So my opinion is, if you can avoid the no cost refi, do it. You'll be better off financially. But if, again, we always look at people's needs. If they're going, Glenn, I just don't have the money sitting in the bank to pay for closing costs, well, then we'll look at raising up the loan amount, or what we'll do is we'll raise up the interest rate and give them a credit that pays the closing costs.
See, there's different option of refis, just, so that's why it's very good for you, for anyone who's thinking about refis or even buying. I always say, get a second opinion. Don't just talk to one person, get a second opinion to see where, always work with someone who's knowledge, and always work with someone that you could trust, right?
Absolutely. And that's good. I was just going to say, and that's why if they go to our website, they'll see a bunch of testimonials. I mean, we're always putting ourselves in the shoes of the customer. It's not what's in our best interest. It's what's in their best interest. Because in my opinion, the truth always comes out. If you took advantage of people, if you gave them a 4%, hey, you can refinance, I got a rate of 4%. And then they start talking to their friends say, hey, I refinanced at 3.5. Hey, I refinanced at 3.375. And they go, why did you get 4%? And then when they find out by talking to other people or other lenders that they got a 4% rate because the lender, in essence, raised up the rate to give them a credit to pay for closing costs, was that in their best interest? Probably not. So again, I caution them to, you have to look at what the client's needs are. I mean, sometimes we do need to raise up the loan amount. Sometimes we do need to raise up the rate because they just don't have the money in the bank. But, everybody should at least get, like you say, a second opinion, find out what's in their best interest. When it comes, look at the goals. There's, 8 or 9 different goals that you have here for refinancing, and see if you want to take advantage of 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these goals and accomplish them through a refinance.
Yep. So now, Glenn, I actually, you probably didn't know this. I don't think I mentioned to you before. No, I want to say probably back in 2003, 2004, I actually used to work for a mortgage company. Now, back then, you don't have to take the test and get the license. But after 2008, everything changed, new guideline, and now mortgage broker has to get licensed, just like realtors and others, professional who needs a license. So with all of this new, with what's going on with the COVID, and I'm sure the interest rate is low, the bank wants to protect themselves just like everybody else. I want to know, if I'm thinking about refi, is there a new guideline that I need to be aware of right now?
Well, let's just go back to the 2008, and then we'll come back to 2020. In 2008, when there was the downturn in the real estate market, we had out there mortgage programs that would do no income verification, no asset verification loans. Mm-hmm. Those were part of the problem, that you showed up and you said, what do you want to state your income to be? Well, $10,000 a month. Nobody verified it, and you got approved. The bill came in, and you didn't, it may not have been a monthly payment that you could really afford. Fast forward, after 2008, they changed everything. I mean, I used to have people with high net worths, millions of dollars in net worth, and they had great credit scores. We did not have to verify their income because of their great credit score. And again, I would do that with someone who had a high net worth and was making good income. But again, where people are struggling or where they're living paycheck to paycheck, it was not a good loan for them, especially if the income that they were stating was inflated. So to make a long story short, the industry said, nope, we're only going to make loans where income is verified through W-2s, through pay stubs, through tax returns. Every mortgage loan now, the W-2s and the income that shows up on the tax returns is verified with the IRS. So, even if they want to play Photoshop and they want to, because I've had people, in my illustrious career, I've had thousands of great customers, and occasionally I get a bad egg. I've had somebody Photoshop that they made more income on a tax return. Okay, you can do that for starters, but eventually, when it gets through processing and underwriting, they're going to verify with the IRS, and the IRS is going to come back and say, well, no, this is what their income truly is. So it's income that's first off up front with the pre-approval, with it starting out in processing. We're going to get tax returns, W-2s, and pay stubs. That's the biggest change that came out of 2008. And since then, and then obviously we verify it with the IRS. Since then, with COVID-19, and again, it's really unfortunate. There's so many people that, they want to have the American dream. They went to contract, and then because of COVID-19 and, nothing that they did, they got laid off, they got furloughed, they got their hours reduced. The first two, it's really unfortunate because if you have to have a job. And again, the banks are trying to be mean people, but without a job, you don't have income coming in. And, and unemployment compensation doesn't equal what you're currently making. So therefore, they want to make you a loan, put you in a house, you can't make the payment. And then within the first 90 days, they're foreclosing on you. The banks don't want to do that. So if you don't have a job, you can't refinance, you can't buy a house. The long story short, on some of the people that were in our pipeline and what has changed, going back to your point, what has changed is lenders now must re-verify employment within 3 days, not a week, not 10 days, 3 days prior to the closing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it has delayed some closings because some HR departments are not there. They're not at the company. They're at home. They're at home. They're somewhere else. And so, you're trying to get a hold of them to get them to re-verify that Glen Marino still works. And they have to re-verify that Glen Marino still works 40 hours. If the verification comes back and says, no, Glen works only 30 hours, we reduced his hours under this COVID-19, guess what? Time out. You're not going to closing. We're sending you back to underwriting, not at 40 hours, but we're going to re-underwrite your income as if it's 30 hours and see if you still qualify. If you still qualify, then we'll reschedule the closing. If you don't, we have to then say, what do you want to do? Do you want to look for another house? Do you want to go to the sellers and say, can we extend the contract? Waiting for you to get, the company to put you back at 40 hours. But again, if you don't qualify, if your income is insufficient, the banks don't want to put you in a position of failure.
Yes.
So again, if somebody's a W-2 employee, you're going to get re-verified your employment within 3 days of closing. If you're self-employed, we're going to get a CPA letter that says that your company is still in existence. We'll get it during the processing and going back to the 3 days prior to closing. 3 days prior to closing, we have to get, again, a CPA letter that says that Candace's self-employed company is still in existence and is in good standing with the state of Illinois. They want to make sure that you didn't shut it down, that you didn't pay your franchise taxes, or that you're not in good standing, because that would then give the lender pause that COVID-19 has caused you to shut down your operations.
Wow, those are very critical information that I'm glad you're sharing, because I don't think a lot of people know about that. So 3 days prior to closing, that's when they do the verification on the employment. And if you're self-employed, it will be verified through CPA. That is very critical. That's why people need to listen to this show so that they could actually hear all of this type of information. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you for for that piece of information, because it's very important. Let me ask you another question. So
can I interrupt you for 1 second, Candace? There's one other thing that maybe in this COVID-19 environment that your audience might want to understand, that there's a difference between forbearance and forgiveness.
I was going to ask you about that question next.
Because in this environment, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which own the majority of the mortgages in the United States, okay, they have come out and said that if Glenn or Candace can't make their mortgage payment, you can apply to the bank that's servicing your loan. So wherever you make your payment to, you can apply to the servicer and say that I'm having a hardship under COVID-19, and they will give you a forbearance for up to 6 months. Now, and it can be renewed for another 6 months. So the bottom line is that you can get up to 12 months of forbearance. That's the good news. That's the good news. Now, the other news. Forbearance for up to 6 months at a time. It will not impact your credit. They cannot show you late. They cannot impact your credit score. So it's not going to have a negative impact on credit. Another good thing. There's 3 choices, though. What happens when all of a sudden, say I was furloughed, and all of a sudden after 90 days, my company calls me up and says, hey, we're back open for business. We need you. Come on back to work. And you're all excited. So you figure, well, what the heck? I better tell the bank I don't need to be on forbearance anymore. They're not forgiving the payments. Got to remember, that's the difference. They're not forgiving them. They're just forbearing them of having you to make the payment currently. And there's 3 options that the servicers are going to impose upon people once they're asking not to be in forbearance anymore. And it's something upfront. When people are applying for forbearance, whether it's for 3 months, 6 months, up to 12 months, they need to ask this question of their servicer. What happens when I finish the forbearance period? How do I make up those payments? Mm-hmm. 3 options. 1, the servicer could say, well, you owe me, say I forbeared for 3 payments, and each payment was $2,000. That's $6,000. So at the end of forbearance, if it was 90 days, on the 91st day, the servicer can say, well, you owe me $6,000. Could be a hardship for a lot of people to say, come up with 3 mortgage payments all at once, right?
Yeah, $6,000. It's not a small amount. Second
option, they say, oh, we realize that it's a hardship. We'll spread the $6,000 over 12 months, over 6 months. But again, call the servicer. What is their policy? Because the third option is your best option. They say, we're going to take those 3 payments, that's $6,000, and we're going to tack it on to the end of your loan. Instead of it being a 30-year loan, it's a 30-year and 3-month loan. So you'll just continue to make $2,000 a month payments for 30 years and 3 months. That's what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. But what your audience should know is, please don't go in and get forbearance and not know what happens when forbearance finishes. What is the policy of that particular servicer? You need to know that so that you're going in with your eyes wide open, and that down the road you don't have this financial hardship staring you in the face.
Yes. Okay? Well, that is a good thing to know. Now, I was actually going to ask you that question, but now that you clarified that, it really helps, help me and my audience to understand a little bit better, because I cannot speak for other people. I know when all of this happened and I saw all of this news that, talking about, you could tell your mortgage to, not to charge your mortgage right now, whatever. I gave it a 2-second thought. Maybe I should. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen after all of this over. Let me just pay. I have the ability to pay. Let me just pay. Let's say if I'm one of those people, like, during this time, it's really hard for me to pay. I have to pick and choose, so I decided not to, I decided not to pay the mortgage. I decided to call my mortgage up and all of that. Or there are people who say, you know what? since everybody's not paying the mortgage, let me just call my mortgage up and let them know that I'm not going to pay either. I'm going to take advantage of situation so I can save us some money, maybe buy some new, do a new back porch or whatever that reason is. Now, when I do this, let's say if I went for it, right? If I went for it, whatever reason that is, whether you lose the job, you can't pay, or I'm just wanting to take advantage of it. Would that put a ding on my mortgage? Like in the future, if I want to refi, or in the future, if I want to buy and apply for mortgage, would it say somewhere, during the COVID-19, she cannot afford her mortgage? I know it's not going to go into your credit, but I don't know if there's going to be anything in my history so that they could actually take a second look at.
No, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out and said that when someone's in forbearance, they cannot negatively report to the credit bureaus the fact that you've entered into forbearance, which means that, when somebody looks at your credit report in the future, it should not. Now, you got to remember this: the payment history it'll at least show up and show that there has been. Here we are in April. If you were in forbearance and you didn't pay in February, you didn't pay in March, you didn't pay in April, and someone pulls your credit and sees that there's been no payments, they're going to be, a lender will ask the question, what happened here? You entered into forbearance. It didn't affect your credit score. Again, just like we talked about, is it because you still don't have a job? Then that will hurt your ability to refinance. Is it because you got reduced hours? They will look then for your most recent pay stubs to see what your reduced income shows in your pay stub. So it's indirectly going to impact you, and I can't say negatively, but it'll impact you via why did you enter into forbearance? We see here that you have not made your payments. The history shows no payment for the last 90 days, which is your right. As you said, it's your right to do that. And it's not going to affect your credit score, but it will impact you in the sense of you must explain. And again, to me, if somebody had continued to have a job and just elected not to, I can see not make the mortgage payment because they wanted to go take the money and build a deck or something. I can see some lenders saying, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. They had the income, they had the ability to make the payment, which again is my advice to all my clients. If you have the ability to make the payment, do not enter into forbearance. Mm-hmm. Don't take, because again, you will have to explain it at some time down the road, at least within 24, if in the next 24 months after forbearance, you see yourself moving, you see yourself refinancing, you see yourself needing to go in and get cash out to do a deck or something, then I would say don't forbear. If you are still employed, you're still getting the paycheck, make the payment, because there's lenders out there that don't like people who take advantage of this of the system, yes, knowing that they can go into forbearance, didn't need to go into forbearance, versus somebody, we think, oh, okay, well, this guy didn't have money and he had to go into forbearance. The lenders like him, in my opinion, better because he had a reason. He didn't have the money, and so he needed to take forbearance. Mm-hmm. And he did his homework and he talked about it, and they're going to put it onto the back end of his loan. And he got, if I was a lender, I'd probably want to see a couple months worth of payments after he got out of forbearance to see, yeah, he's back on track. He's making the monthly payments. It's not a problem for him. It's not a hardship. He's not making any late payments. And I would, the lenders then would provide him with either a refinance or a purchase money obligation, because he ran into a problem. He lost his job. He had 90 days of forbearance. He got a new job. He got out of forbearance, and now he's making payments again on time. More power to him. It was something outside of his control. Yes. Versus control is when you say, I'm not going to make the payment. I have the money, but I'm I'm in control, and I purposely am not going to make the payment because I'm going to go use it to gamble in Vegas or to put a deck on my house or do something else. The lender doesn't like that decision versus the guy who lost the job and then got himself another job and got himself out of forbearance in 90 days. That's the guy that they're going to say, you got good character. I want to make a loan to you.
There you go. It's all, like you say, no matter, it's not going to hurt your credit, but you kind of have to justify it later. So just do the right thing. Don't take advantage of the system. That's basically what it comes down to. All right. I want you to quickly, because I know that I took a lot of your time, but I still want you to go over some of the program, because some people, they thinking that I don't have a good credit. I don't have, 20% down payment, so I can't buy a house. So, but I'm going to have to pay $1,600 a month for rent. And that inside joke that you and I talk about at the beginning about your daughter finally bought her first real estate property and the 4 units. Can you really talk a little bit more about the options that other people has? Why you mention, why you keep mentioning about the 4 units or multiple units? It doesn't have to be 4 units, but multiple units. Can you talk a little bit about options for other people? And this is not just about for COVID, but this is in general. This is not the option that in general, doesn't matter when, that you could actually use, right?
Let's break it into 2 parts. Let's do if somebody's buying a 1 or a 2 unit, and then let's talk about the 3 or 4 units. The 1 or 2 units, what people should take away from today is that they can become homeowners if they have at least 1% of the purchase price. Who would, and that's an important feature, an important fact to keep in the back of their mind. Human beings being what we are, we don't like to be embarrassed. We don't like to make mistakes. We don't like to be lose money. And when you rent, it's a pretty simple formula. I like the place. I like the neighborhood for my wife, my children, myself. What's the security deposit? What's the first month's rent? Pretty easy. I mean, I can't get embarrassed too much. I can't lose. I understand what my out-of-pocket's going to be. In your case, it was $1,600 in rent, $1,600 in a security deposit. I'm going to come up with $3,200. I get it. And just an aside from that, most renters that we all talk to, our friends, the realtors talk to renters, all renters have about $3,000 in their bank account at all times. The reason I say that is even if you're currently a renter, okay, you have a couple of choices. What happens if at the end of your lease term, the landlord comes up to you and says, hey, you know what, Glen Marino, you've been a noisy tenant. You were constantly, I've getting complaints. I constantly had to tell you to keep it down. You damaged some things. You were late on payments. I'm not going to renew the lease with you. You better start looking for another place. Mm-hmm. Well, if that happens and I've got a family, I'm going to be in a position to have a security deposit, first month's rent, and move. The second reason I have that money in the bank is because maybe I look around at the neighborhood. I now have small children that are getting older. They're going to start going to kindergarten, first, second, third grade. They're going to be walking to and from school. I'm not comfortable. The neighborhood is changing. It's a little more dangerous. I'm moving the family out of the neighborhood. So I've got, as a renter, I've got that ability to first month's rent, security deposit, to go someplace. So there's $3,000, and I'm comfortable in that because I understand it. My wife understands it. My dad, my mom, my brother, my sister, everybody knows I'm going to only be out $3,000 or $3,200 in your case. If I look at a $200,000 home, a $250,000, a $300,000, because I can go up to $331,000 under the IHDA program. Use the $200,000 as our example. On a $200,000 home, normally the lowest down payment is an FHA loan. That's 3.5%. Another option of mine is I could go conventional, and that's going to be 5%. Well, again, if I'm short on funds or I got limited funds, 3.5% on a $200,000 home is $7,000, right? Mm-hmm. That's my down payment.
Yep.
Immediately, the person that has $3,000 in the bank says, Oh my God, Candace, Glenn, you guys are talking crazy talk. I told you I only have $3,000 or $3,200. I don't have $7,000. Show me an apartment. We're good. We need to be renters. I don't have the down payment. But then if you and I and others who are listening, if we always ask people, but do you know who pays that $7,000? If you took IHDA down payment assistance funds, you would get up to $10,000. And you only have to come up with 1% of the purchase price. So 1% of 200,000 is $2,000. So we have our down payment bucket. The bucket number one, down payment is $7,000. That's 3.5% of 200,000. Of the seven, they have to come up with 2,000, right? Because IHDA says you must come up with 1%. They come up with 2,000. They still need 5,000. Well, they've got a $10,000 bucket of money from IHDA. Take 5,000 out of the bucket, leave 5,000 still in the bucket, take 5,000 out. Now you got 5,000 from IHDA, 2,000 from their own funds. 2 and 5 is 7, put a check mark. They got all the money for down payment. Go to bucket number 2. Bucket number 2 in every real estate transaction is closing costs. Closing costs on a purchase are typically about $5,000. Your good lenders will always give you a detailed breakdown of all the detail, all the detail expenses and fees, but it's going to add up to about $5,000. Once again, the renter who has $3,200 in their bank account looks at Candace with crossed eyes and says, Candace, you're not listening to me. I only have $3,200. I don't have $5,000. In fact, you just took $2,000 of my $3,200 and put it in bucket number 1 for the down payment. I only have $1,200 left, and you're asking me to come up with $5,000. Woman, you're crazy. I can't do this. You know, I have to go back to being a renter. And what do you do? And what do I do? And those who are listening, you have to ask who pays the $5,000. Yes, you don't have the ability to pay, or you got $1,200 to pay, but you really don't have the ability to pay. So therefore, how much is left in our IHDA bucket? We had 10,000. We took 5,000 out for the down payment. That means we still have what? $5,000 still remaining. Take the remaining $5,000 from IHDA, put it into your closing costs. You've got now all the money for closing costs. Put a check mark. Got all the money you need for closing costs. Go to the third bucket and the final bucket whenever you buy real estate, and it's called escrows. Escrows for real estate taxes and homeowners insurance. And what do we know about the state of Illinois? We always pay our real estate taxes 1 year behind. We're in the year 2020. We will not pay the 2020 tax bill until 2021.
Yep.
Therefore, if I'm going to close, if we have a client and they're going to close, let's just pick a date. They're going to close on May 31st. That who lived in the house through the first 5 months of 2020? The seller. The seller owes our client 5 months worth of real estate taxes as a credit for them having lived in the house for the first 5 months. The credit is always greater than what the lender is going to ask them to initially put up into the escrow to pay future real estate tax bills. So let's summarize that. Escrows are zero to our client because the seller is giving us a real estate tax credit. Bucket number 2, closing costs are $5,000, but who paid it? Zero to our customer because IHDA paid the $5,000. Go to bucket number 1. It was $7,000 for the down payment, but our customer came up with $2,000 because IHDA came up with $5,000. So what is $2,000 in down payment, zero in closing costs, zero in escrows? It's a grand total of $2,000. They just bought a $200,000 home. So my point is, we have an ability to educate people out there who think I've got $3,200 for my first month's rent, my security deposit, educate them that they actually can become homeowners in this environment. And again, as it goes from 200,000 to 250,000 to 300,000, we can, outside of this presentation today, we can look at how the realtor can help them with what's called seller credits for closing costs, still to keep, they'll use up all the $10,000 from IHDA, and the seller can still provide a little bit of a credit, and they can still buy their home for as little as 1% of the purchase price. So that's good for 1 and 2 units. IHDA only does 1 and 2 units, and 2 units are one of my favorites. how would you like to buy something for 1% of the purchase price? So you bought a $250,000 duplex, a 2-unit. You put in $2,500 of your own funds. Say your monthly payment is about $1,800 a month, all in, taxes, insurance, everything. And then all of a sudden, your tenant is paying $1,000 a month of your $1,800 a month mortgage payment. That means you're only out of pocket paying $800 a month to live in a 2-unit.
Yes.
And you came up with $2,500 to purchase it. I think it's like, it's great.
No brainer. Yes. That's it. Yeah. A lot of people think that they cannot buy because of that, but that's why it's important for them to understand there are programs out there to help them. Right.
Correct. Now, and when you get to the 3 and 4 units, there is no down payment assistance, no closing cost assistance, other than the seller can help give you some credit. But go back to bucket number 1. You can buy with an FHA loan. You can buy a 3-unit or a 4-unit for as little as 3.5% down. So if let's say you did a 4-unit, it was $400,000. 3.5% would be like $14,000. Well, again, some people can say that's a little heavy, but if they do have that, or if they and somebody else wants to go in together and spend $14,000 for the down payment, they then will have tenants in unit number 2, number 3, and number 4, and they could be paying $1,500 to $2,000 a month in rent. So even if it's $1,500, that's $1,500 out of unit number 2, another $1,500, that's $3,000, another $1,500, that's $4,500 that they're receiving in rents every month. And that typically is going to be more than what the lender will have them paying in principal and interest, taxes, and insurance for the purchase of that property. So again, they can be living in one of the 4 units and they're living mortgage free. They still have a mortgage, but they're not making a payment because the tenants are in essence giving them enough rental income to offset the mortgage payment. And I try to get a lot of these millennials, I try to say, hey, why don't you live in for a year at least? Isn't it a great way to start your real estate portfolio? Yes. You live in one of the units for a year. You have tenants 2, 3, and 4 pay you enough rent that they pay the mortgage payment. And after a year, pull yourself out of that 1 unit. Now you got 4 tenants paying you rent. And that's your first big piece of real estate in your real estate portfolio. And it's positively cash flowing. It's a great way to go.
Well, see, that's great. Now, I want to clarify that with that program, this both program that we're talking about, 1 or 2 unit or 3 or 4 units, you must live in the building, or you must living in 1 unit for at least a year, and then you could refi.
Correct. You don't have to refi. I mean, you can move out at that point in time.
Oh, after 1 year, you can move out, but you have to be resident for 1 year, at least.
The reason I say 1 year, and again, there's no written rule that it says 1 year, but the reason I say 1 year is that you applied a year earlier and said, this is going to be my owner-occupied residence, okay? Mm-hmm. Now you're applying again. You're going to go buy something else. You're moving out, right? So you're going to buy something else. What you want to do is you want to make sure the underwriter doesn't feel that, well, you really meant for this first purchase to be an investment and you said it was owner occupied. And so they're going to taint you a little bit and say, no, we don't believe that this next one's going to be now your new owner occupied. But again, if somebody lives in a property for a year, my experience is the underwriters, are comfortable with the fact that it's America. People, their family units change. They get married. They have children. They need bigger places. They don't want to get rid of what they currently have. They want to rent it out. So that's why I say a year, and you're going to be comfortable. The underwriter is going to be comfortable with you saying, no, I'm changing that property to an investment property, a rental property, all 4 units, all 3 units, and I'm going to go buy a single family. That passes the smell test. I want to now go from being one of four, I want a little more privacy. I want a single family. I've got a baby. I got a wife. Let's go buy a single family. Okay, that all passes the smell test.
Yes, that's reasonable. Now, I'm not sure if you mentioned this. This program sounds great. Some people probably think that, you know what, I don't think I have that 700, 800 credit score to do this. What if someone doesn't have this credit score? Because I don't know if you mentioned this. Tell me, what is the credit score has to be in order to be qualified for these programs?
Well, again, the IDA is 640, goes all the way down to 640. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a lot of landlords want to see at least like a 640. So many of the renters out there, if they listen to this podcast of yours, they should be in a position that they're going, well, I got at least a 640 and I got $3,200 in the bank. Maybe I should talk to somebody about becoming a homeowner. So you go all the way down to 640 because again, IDA is like a second mortgage. When you take advantage of the IDA program, you're still getting an FHA loan as your first mortgage, or you're getting a conventional loan, or you're getting a VA loan. You can pick which loan program is best suited for your family as your first mortgage. It's the second mortgage where it's giving you down payment money. It's giving you $6,000 or $7,500 or $10,000. That's considered like a second mortgage. And so again, you have to first look at, well, IDA says that it wants at least a 640. FHA used to go down. Now forget IDA for a second. Just FHA without IDA used to go all the way down to 580 in a credit score. They've
Really?
changed that under COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Under COVID-19, you now must have at least a 620 score. So both FHA and conventional are on the same point. That's their minimum scores, 620, 620. But for 20 more points, getting to 640, you get up to $10,000 in down payment assistance. I'm going to work really hard, quite honestly, if I was in that close. If I got at least a 625, I'm going to go for $7,500. I'm going to go for $10,000 if by just trying to see what I can do. And again, you can find out your plans of action to increase your credit score by just talking to any one of my partners. They run your credit report. They see you got a 625, but they see your Visa card is got $1,000 limit, but it's you're running at $990 is your outstanding balance. You're running right up against the credit limit. Mm-hmm. So they have what's called what if simulators, and they can put in, well, what if Candace reduced her balance from $995 down to $400? Mm-hmm. What would the credit score be? Oh, well, it'd be 655. Ding, ding, ding. You now have greater than a 640 score, and now you can take advantage of down payment assistance. For others, if they don't need down payment assistance, they just want to become homeowners, the minimum score is 620 for all your programs.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I think we got a lot of good information from you. After this this interview is over, if you could go back to the live video and just put maybe your website on there so people could go and take a look at the different program that you talk about, and maybe even get a hold of someone on your team to talk more about this. But I think with all the information that you gave us today, it really gave a lot of people something to think about whether they should buy or refinance at this time. And I truly appreciate everything that you share with me, because every time I talk to you, I learn something new. It doesn't matter, maybe 10 minutes from now I call you, I bet you're going to teach me something new again. But I think you gave us a lot of great information. I really think, and I actually talked to a few people. They said, well, I talked to a lender a year ago. They don't think I have good credit. My suggestion to them is that if you haven't talked to a lender recently, talk to a lender who actually know and to see where you at, because 6 months from 6 months ago and now, if you have been working on your credit, have been doing something, things change. So it's always good to actually say, let me talk to someone. If you're really thinking about refinancing and buying, go ahead and talk to Glenn or other lender that you have to actually see where you're at and what you can do, right?
That's a great recommendation. Credit scores, we can run credit reports for free, so it doesn't cost them anything if they call into us. What they should know also is that not every lender is an IHDA, Illinois Housing Development Authority lender. You have to get certified. I haven't told you that I'm with First Centennial Mortgage, and so that's how they get a hold of us. They can actually go to our website at themarinolendingteam.com, and they can apply to get their credit run. They can apply to see if they can get pre-approved. But the key is they're going to hear from other lenders, oh, the IHDA program it takes longer to get approved. Oh, the IHDA program is a lot more paperwork. They need to ask them, when they hear the bad news about it, ask them if they even offer the IHDA program, because most of the negative comments come from lenders who are not certified IHDA lenders. It is the best program out there. It has a lower interest rate than a FHA standard non-IHDA loan. So you'll get a better interest rate, which means a lower payment. I would try to take advantage of the down payment assistance program if I was buying a house for under $331,000, because I don't know the negative to it. The only negative is I must have a 640 score. But if I'm that close to it, because I can't even get on the dance floor unless I have a 620 score. So we will run credit at First Centennial. You can call the office at 630-983-3600. Tony Marino is the branch manager. You can ask for Tony, and he can run credit for you for free. So get your credit run, find out where you land. Are you above 620? Are you above 640? That you can take advantage of down payment assistance. And be aware of the fact that not everyone is an IHDA lender, but boy, IHDA can help make you a homeowner better than you thought.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Glenn. You have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me today. Had a great time. Bye-bye now.
Bye.